Hey guys, this is Ben the Creator. I'm super excited. I have a special guest today. I'm here with Steven Harris with Journey Payroll and HR. We recently connected at a BNI meeting, and number one, he's like super tall. How tall are you, dude?
At 6'5".
He stood out, but also too, a lot of people there said a lot of positive things about him, and I told people there what I was doing, and he's, oh, you should connect with him. And I told him about the show that we started, and I thought it was gonna be he was gonna be a perfect guest, and we we started I started following you on social media, and I love your content. You're all about a positive mindset, and the idea of the show is obviously to tell stories, inspire, and how to share best practices and just be a little vulnerable and talk about that. And with that being said, brother, tell me a little bit about your business. How did you get started? What was your inspiration?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was good to meet you a few weeks back. And sometimes with my dress shoes or whatever, I give an extra half an inch on those things. So maybe I'm 6'6" when you tell me. But no, I run a local payroll and HR company out here in Phoenix, not too far down the street from you guys. We've been doing it 6 years, and we actually Journey Payroll was launched in 2010. And I found the CEO who runs the company while I was working at ADP for 10 years. So I was at ADP, biggest company in the world. So learned the ropes there, and him and I had an idea to run and operate a Phoenix location. So I brought in my business partner, and her and I wholly own the Phoenix location of Journey Payroll. We were the first location outside of Fort Collins, and that's where it started. So what's nice is now we own the local market of Arizona and Phoenix, and we own and operate at a high level. And so we were able to leverage proven technology and that kind of thing, and some marketing to get that going off the ground. But now pretty well-oiled machine, 6 years in, over 700 clients. We got a team of 9. We're a small group, and we have a mindset of supporting the community that supports us. Arizona-based, local small business, doing it at a high level. No more 1-800-payroll. Can I get some help and wait for 2 hours? It's call, text, email. We're extremely accessible group. So it's a lot of fun, especially learning and finding out all the different ideas and businesses that are out there, and the creativity and the grit that small business owners have. It's pretty cool to get to know and work with those guys.
That's amazing. So tell me, how did that transition go from like you working for one of the biggest companies and like you like starting your own? And because I'm assuming you were an employee, right? Okay. So like, how did you go from being an employee to, okay, boom, I'm going to start my own company, and now all the amount of clients that you're working with?
Yeah. So I come from an entrepreneurial family. So my dad was a software developer. My mom worked with him in the business as well. And so I always saw that growing up as a kid, and I want to start my own business. I want to do my own thing. I didn't know what it was going to be.
Yeah.
I ended up starting work for my dad when I was 22 years old. So this is 2008. And when I was selling a payroll tax software. And so this software was being sold to independent payroll companies, what we are now. So I learned the ropes of payroll through that. 2 years later, he sold the company to ADP. And I was like, Dad, I want to start my own payroll company. Like we were selling the business and I want to do my own. He's be a sponge. ADP is the largest, most successful payroll company in the world. Learn everything you possibly can. I got certified in payroll, took all the leadership stuff and did pretty well there. I traveled the world, President's Clubs, and was one of their top salespeople. But that entrepreneurial family, that drive that my parents had, I had that, and I always wanted to have my own business. And so when we started thinking about how we launch our own payroll company with my business partner, Jamie, it was a pipe dream back then. It was kind of, how do you get started? How do you do that? And so when we found Kevin out in Fort Collins, and he was open-minded to say, hey, you guys own it, run it. We're just going to be your back end. And that's how we're going to grow Journey Payroll nationwide, is through local ownership. It gave us that little bit of that nudge and that confidence to say, okay, we've got the platform. Now it's up to us to go organically grow. And we left ADP, 0 clients. It was all just word of mouth. That's why BNI is so great for us, is we build our business all of relationship building and networking and referrals and all that kind of stuff. I think it just goes back to my roots of wanting to be an entrepreneur. I had little side businesses when I was a kid, painting gates around the neighborhood. My mom would teach me the invoicing and the budgeting and the loss and all that stuff. So that was cool. I just was never going to be a lifer in corporate America. I just couldn't see myself there retiring, working for someone else. Just wasn't in my DNA.
Tell me something that's extremely important to you as an individual for your daily activities, or just maybe business combined.
That's a really good question. It changes every year, I feel like. As I grow older, things change, but I think the constant is just being a knowledge seeker. I just have this growth mindset. Like I just keep that top of mind always, like just keeping an open mind, learning new things, meeting new people, asking them questions, listening intently, listening to receive, not listening to respond. If that makes sense. A lot of people listen to respond. Like, what am I going to say next in the middle of a conversation? So take a step back and just listen to receive, learn what your hearing. And I always ask people, what book are you reading? And so then when they tell me what book, I throw it in the Audible library and then I'll get to it eventually. But I think it's just having a growth mindset. That's what drives me the most. I've got a wife, I've got 2 kids. Obviously, they're extremely important and everything that I do is for them. And so I make time for them as well. But I also realize that if I'm building something or trying to do something great and I'm not there for them along the way, then they're not going to be there for me in the end. So what was the point? So I always have that growth mindset, open mind, and making sure that I'm there for my family and the relationships that are close to me. I'm heavily involved in that.
No, that's amazing, brother. And about your business, like if this was obviously, technically this is the first time I have you as a guest, and if people are watching you, they don't know what you do, what your company specializes, like what is it that you actually do?
Payroll 101. So when you're a small business owner, you have to hire employees, right?
Yeah.
You could be a solopreneur, and we'll talk about how payroll works for a solopreneur as well. Let's say you're an employee at an HVAC company. You're like, you know what, I can do this. I'm going to start my own air conditioning company. And so you go off on your own and you hire your first admin or you hire your first tech. Now you've got to think about all the compliance that and the complexities that come with hiring employees. It's more than just handing someone a paycheck. And let's say you hire them at $25 an hour, they work 20 hours and you're going to give them $500. It doesn't work that way. There's taxes that are involved. There's federal and state forms that are involved. There's compliance in how you pay those taxes in. There's compliance in how you manage your employees. And so we streamline that entire process for small businesses. We take that thought, that difficult complexity of your back office off your plate so you can focus on what you do best, repairing, installing HVAC units, right? And so when clients log onto our system, it's super streamlined, super easy to use. They onboard their staff. They can track their employee hours using our system. It's integrated with payroll. A couple of buttons that they press every time they're ready to submit, view their totals, and then we take care of the rest. And so not only is our technology really easy and efficient for small business owners, so I don't have to worry about this. I just log on whenever I need to run payroll, but it's my team that really shines. And the team aspect of you're going to have a dedicated payroll specialist. You're going to have someone that you can reach out to that's not an employee of yours, right? And so payroll's not expensive. It's very cost effective, a couple $1,000 a year, right? It's pennies compared to hiring an admin to do payroll for you in-house. Yeah. So the smartest decision you can make as a small business owner is outsource the back office functions that you're not well-versed in and let the experts handle that, whether it's accounting, bookkeeping, maybe you want to offer health insurance, 401ks, things like that. We are the quarterback of your entire back office because payroll's ran every week, every 2 weeks, or however often you run.
Yeah.
So just being a resource for small businesses, and really just comes down to there's more to it than handing someone a paycheck. And the last thing you want is the IRS or Department of Labor knocking on your door. And so we protect our clients from that happening.
That's amazing. And regarding the HR, how do you incorporate that?
So we have an HR team. Clients have unlimited access to call or email HR questions. Hey, I got to let an employee go. Do you have some good tips on how I should go about this so I don't get in trouble? Because you do want to make sure there's a process in place of how you terminate an employee, or maybe that employee has a cell phone or laptop or a key or some equipment and they have not returned it. Can I withhold their check before they return? There's laws around that. And our HR team is accessible to all of our clients to ask those types of questions, just be a guiding resource. And then there's a whole system, HR library they can log on to and get sample handbooks, and they can get job descriptions built for them and all that kind of stuff. So it just really helps build out that back office and in terms of documentation and just compliance. At the end of the day, when you're an employer, the more you document, the more you'll be protected. And if you're just willy-nilly with it, you can find yourself in trouble. And so we want to provide those as resources for our clients.
No, that's all I hear is that you are pretty much solving the problem of entrepreneurs, which is like giving them their time back. And I have a buddy of mine that he's always telling me, you got to learn how to take a leadership role and you delegate. And that's the reason I have a person that's controlling the cameras. I used to do everything manually, and it was taking 2 hours for me to edit these podcasts. Okay, I invested on this equipment that we live edit, and then there's somebody managing the system, and then now we got on. That's my cousin. And so it's just I'm gonna give some of the tasks to them so I can free up my time, which is going to be the networking, relationship building, and going out. So that's exactly what you're doing. So it's so crazy that, in a nutshell, it doesn't matter what you do in business. Like when you're a business owner, you have to be a problem solver. Yeah. I truly believe that. Going back to facing challenges and solving problems, like for you, when you started your journey of starting your business, like what's been the biggest challenge as an entrepreneur, and like how did you overcome it?
So I think the biggest challenge, you just nailed it, is when you start a business, you're the owner operator. You are an employee of your own company. Even though you're the business owner, you own the company, you're on the LLC, you're the member.
Yeah.
You're still operating your business. You're wearing as many hats as you possibly can to
Yeah.
get it off the ground. And so I think the biggest challenge is figuring out how to scale. How do you invest in employees? How do you invest in your team and finding the right ones? So that way you are not that operator. So you can focus on the growth of the company. So you can focus on the networking, the relationship building, and the sales and all of that stuff. If you're an owner or operator, you're not really a business owner. You're just an employee of your own company.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, we do provide payroll as a service and HR as a service to unload those things off your plate. There's other vendors out there that can do those things, that you can outsource your marketing, you can outsource, your social media, whatever you need to do. But investing in your team and scaling your business, I think, is the most challenging thing as a business owner. And the hardest part is in the early days, you're not making a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so as an owner, you're like, oh, I'm a business owner. I want to start, this is for me. I want to make all the money and all this stuff. But if you take all the profits off the table, you're not going to be able to invest in team to grow. That's a short-term mindset. And so if you want a growth long-term mindset, you've got to eat top ramen for a handful of years, right? Like, you just have to invest back in your team and then have the long-term goal 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. Otherwise, you just won't survive. You'll either burn out or you'll run out of money and you won't have a team to go out. So
not only that, like, you're going to feel defeated.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I launched the company officially about 7 months ago, 8 months ago, but we opened up the studio back in early February, and I really expected I'm going to kill it, make money, and then it wasn't happening. So I got I even went through some depression, and I felt that's the other thing too. I needed to be patient. I needed to invest in myself, and like the equipment that I have back there, spending over $1,000 something just so I could get my time back, because I was doing these edits manually and it was like 2 or 3 hours. Oh,
it's a long time. And you got to put that work in. Trust me, there's many a days that you're putting in 16, 20 hours just to get it off, because you can't afford to hire those people just yet, but you've got to grind and you got to go thing. And I just remember when we launched, we ripped up our pre-launch forecast pretty quickly. Yeah. Right? Like, you go into it and you're like, oh, this is what we're going to do. We're going to kill it. And then, oh my gosh, it took us 6 months to get our first 25 clients.
Yeah.
And it's because we knew nobody. We had to build our network. We had to build our relationships. And then going into that first full year, 2018, we've been rocking and rolling ever since. And I think it really goes into that relationship building, and people want to work with people they know and trust. And so either A, you do that by taking care of them at a high level and you work on your retention, or B, you got to be prepared. You got to know your market. You got to know who you're talking to, and you've got to be confident enough in what you're doing to get out there and start talking to people. We never said no to a meeting in the early days. It was like, we're talking to anybody and everybody that will listen. And there was many meetings like, man, that was kind of a bust. Like, I'll probably never hear from that person ever again, or my pitch, or got to get those reps in. And so when you're starting out, I think you just have to go all in. I think if you've got a plan B, probably not going to succeed. Now, you might, but I feel like if you have a plan B, you've got a fallback plan. And for us, there was never a fallback plan. This is what we're doing, and this will happen, and this will become successful. And it's because we're on the path. Right.
In that period that you mentioned, that like that example you gave from going from 0 to the first 25 clients, and like, how do you stay motivated? Like, in that, like, how did you stay motivated during that time? What was your why?
Yeah, I think you just don't think about what could go wrong. You just think about just constantly growing and going back to growth mindset, constantly pushing forward each and every day, setting up your day to say, hey, I'm going to reach out to these, for us, CPAs, health brokers, bookkeepers, those are power partner of ours. So we started there and just going and doing drops and just meeting with CPAs and it's like banging your head against the wall a lot of times. But I think if you always have the vision and you can stick to your mission. So if you know what you're going to do in 3 years, this is where I want to be, you've got to back into that and figure out what your path. Now, the path is not always straight line. You have to be able to pivot and learn. But when things don't go your way, if you run and hide, it's just not going to work out. So I think the motivation comes from just taking it day by day, have the vision 3 years out, but take it day by day all the way back in. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing tomorrow. Like, I wake up tomorrow morning, I look at my calendar, and I know where I want to go in 3 years. And I know what I want to do today because I looked at my calendar this morning. But I'm not like, oh, next week I'll do it. Oh, next week I'll do it. It's set, it's in my calendar, I'm doing it. And so that's when you have that daily routine and you set that mindset for yourself and spend the time in the morning to set the tone for your day and just get after it. I think that's what keeps me motivated, is just constantly keeping that growth and that structure.
In the beginning of that process, like, what mistakes did you make and what do you think you learned from them?
I think it was just the communication of the talk track. What do we really provide? Like, when we first started, I was in payroll with ADP for a long time, but I was selling something different. I knew the ins and outs of payroll, but I didn't know how to sell payroll the way we're doing it. I was
Yeah.
selling a tax software to large enterprise companies, very strategic sale. Now here it's very transactional and it's relationship driven. And so it was just getting the reps in of the community. And that's why we never said no to a meeting,
Yeah.
as I alluded to earlier. It's just continuing that communication. I think that was one of the hardest things. B&I is a big helpful thing for that. So if you're a small business owner and you don't know what B&I is, find a chapter out there. There's 85 of them here in the state of Arizona.
Yeah.
And there's a plug for Nate Dominguez at B&I. But
Yeah.
it was huge for us. And not only does it help grow our business and develop relationships, but it helps with your speaking, your public speaking,
Yeah.
and your pitch and your 30-second commercials. And how do you gain that interest? And all you're looking for is gaining that interest.
No, I could totally relate now that you mentioned that you were figuring out what your actual, what would
Value
like your,
prop.
yeah, there you
It's your value prop. Like I know the service I provide and I know we're good, but how do I get
Yeah.
my value prop across in less than 60 seconds to something?
Oh no, definitely. For me, I had all these ideas. Like I have another studio that I'm actually gonna get rid of it, but like it was supposed to be a Reels room. It wasn't, and I was everywhere when I would talk to people. And I have a buddy of mine that he does merchant services, and I told him what I was doing, and then we recently met up because we were setting up my merchant account and all that, so we could process payments. And he mentioned, I told him what we're doing now. It's like, all right, our focus is, we're going to offer the podcast studio. We're going to do social media management. We're going to create a package where people can film. We're going to take the long form content, make it into short form content, and then we'll post for our clients. And we're going to save them time for the people that either don't have time, forget. And when I told him, he was like, oh, wow, Ben, like now I know what you're talking about. Last time we talked a couple months ago, you told me you were doing this and that, and you're going to do videos for restaurants. I'm like, now you have a sense of direction.
Yeah.
I think you're right, dude. Like, definitely, for me too, if I could look back, I was like, I wish I would have just focused on. There's a book. What is it? Like that one, the one thing, like by Kelly or something. But anyways, the book, it talks about you should focus on one thing, like whatever your strength is, like a service, product. And there's so many people that say they can multitask. The reality is, you can't. Like, there's gonna be one thing that you're gonna really focus
You're
on.
doing everything 80% of the way, where you can
Exactly.
focus on one, or probably less than, but you focus on the one thing and knock it out 100%.
I know, definitely. And can you share maybe a time in the beginning where maybe like you felt like giving up on your business, and like how did you overcome that feeling?
I don't think I ever felt like giving up on my business. There was definitely challenging times. Just when you're in the day-to-day and the grind and you're like, man, just, it's slow go. For us, it's a small business payroll deal. We bill on a per payroll basis. So whenever we sign up a new client, it's not like we're getting the full annualized amount right up in there. So we're working and that full revenue doesn't come in for 12 months later. And so we got all these deals in, but the revenue's not coming in until it's realized annually. But I think it was later, actually. It wasn't the first couple of years. I think the energy and the drive and the motivation that we were doing something great and all these things was always there. But it was probably about the 4.5, 5 year mark where we weren't quite where we really wanted to be, where we thought we'd be.
Yeah.
And that's more just personal, like where we thought we'd be, like financially, right? Like the business is strong, right? And we were doing all the things and everything was going well. I think personally, it was like, man, like, where's the light at the end of the tunnel? Like, when do we get to the point where I'm no longer a business owner, operator, an employee of my own company?
Yeah.
And where do I get to the point where we can scale? And then so I just go back to the challenges of scaling. But when you invest back in your team and you give them the freedom to grow and develop and learn, and we have a mentality of win or learn. There's no such thing as failure. You're going to make mistakes and you just have to learn from those mistakes and just keep moving forward. Like when things are in your control and we're all human, right? We make mistakes, clients make mistakes, and you just got to, learn from it. It comes from Nelson Mandela quote, I never lose. I either win or I learn. So we coach that a lot. But I would say when I was in that rut, man, I also had some health stuff going on and just outside factors going on and coming out of COVID and all that. It was just redefining your purpose and what is it that I'm working towards. And I think you have to really ask yourself and I knew Journey was always the platform that I wanted and needed to do other things outside of just payroll. For a while, I was known as the payroll guy.
Yeah.
And so cracking out of that, because there's a lot more to what we provide and what I provide. And so getting out of that rut was just finding the consistency, finding the habits, the incremental changes that I can make in my life, like just adding a morning routine when I would wake up with chaos, right?
Yeah.
Just waking up an hour earlier so I can focus on my mindset going into the day. Just those little things get you out of those dips and those valleys, and they get pretty low at times. And as a business owner, sometimes you feel like you're on an island, all the weight's on your shoulders, even when you have a business partner.
Yeah.
And so you have those conversations and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's check your inner circle, have people that are surrounding you that inspire you, motivate you, hold you accountable, and just continue to lift yourself up through habits and routine and building structure out, I think is just invigorates so much more energy into your life, especially when you maybe add something that's outside of your normal business. Find a hobby. Like a lot of us get stuck in our business and it's all we do and that becomes our hobby. You got to have other stuff. You got to be able to take adventure. You got to go hiking or get outside or just unplug for a long weekend once a year if that's all you can do. But you've got to do it and you got to make the time for it.
I hear you talking about all the things you're doing and you have a lot on your plate. Like you said you have about 9 team members?
We have team 9, yeah.
Okay. And you have over 700 clients?
Yep.
Okay.
Currently.
How do you find the balance between the demand of your business and your personal life? Because I know you have kids and you're married.
Yeah.
What strategies and advice you give to the viewers that are watching and they can learn from you?
I think you have to sit down with your family and figure out when you're going to take time away from the office or time away from work. So we always plan vacations throughout the year, and most of them are a long weekend. It's like in the early days, it was like a Friday off and that was it. But then it started going, okay, let's do Thursday. And okay, let's do Thursday through Monday as you continue scaling and growing. But you have to plan those adventures and those trips and those things. And it could be as easy as just going up to Woods Canyon Lake and camping, which we just did this past weekend. It doesn't have to be overly extravagant or anything like that, but plan your trip with your family so you've got them on the calendar, and then plan your next trip before you go on that one. So that way you're always having something to look forward to. At the end of the day, adventure, and those are the things that drive happiness. If you're, like I said, constantly working on your business or constantly working in your business, burnout happens. So for me and my business, we offer unlimited PTO to our entire team. So we don't track it. Granted, if you abuse it, might have a conversation. You still got to request the time so we can cover for you. But I'm not going to say, hey, in February, you've only accrued 2 days, so you can't take any time, right? Yeah. If you want to take spring break and spend a week with your family, go for it. Just let us know. We'll get you covered. Like can't have the whole team doing that, but I want my team to feel the flexibility and feel like they have the ability to take that time, even if it's just mental health day stuff, right? Like just,
it's amazing.
Man, that's just tough. I'm going to go take a long weekend for myself and maybe don't go anywhere, but we encourage that internally in our group. So I think it's really important to manage that and making sure you're putting that time in your calendar for your personal stuff and your family.
Well, why do you think that's important for them to take like a personal day off, like when it comes to their mental health or anything like that?
It's 100% proven. It completely rewires your brain. When you're in the monotony of the day-to-day, that's all you have, and the go, and the stress builds and anxiety, and then you wake up and you're like, oh, I don't want to go, and then work becomes a chore. If it's something that you don't love, go find something that you love to do, first and foremost. But if you loved it and then you're not taking that time, you can't rewire your brain. You can't get that reset. You don't get that refresh. We're human. We're not meant to be working day in and day out constantly. We're meant to explore. We're meant to create. We're meant to experiment. And so giving that freedom of PTO, paid time off, saying that, hey, you're still going to get paid for today, even though you're not here, but you're going to come back, I know, next week far more refreshed. Had you not taken those days off, you're going to work even harder because now it's fun. You've had that time. You've had that refresh and that reset.
Is that something you implemented recently or
since day one?
Wow.
Yeah, we've done that since day one. We also do 100% paid employee benefits. So we cover the employee's premium for health insurance. Something we just built into our budget. It's just always been there, which has been really impactful. So it's one of the neat things with our team is like we try to make sure we're taking care of our team. And that goes back to when you scale, you have to scale appropriately, not only from a marketing perspective and sales operations, but also investing in your team the right way. If you can't afford to pay them more than some other business, figure out how you can build out really neat and fun benefits that applies to them that they would really like. I think there's a lot of strategies and a lot of things that you can do to build out your culture and just continue to share in that vision and that leadership and just being there for them and caring, right? Just having the heart for your team and your clients, and I think the rest of it takes care of itself.
No, that sounds amazing, bro. Are you hiring? Just I want all that.
Yeah.
Looking back at your journey, what's one piece of advice like that you would give yourself, like when you're starting off, like maybe something that you should have done something differently when it comes to your hiring process or something in general?
I would say that the statement "perfection is the enemy of progress." If I understood that better earlier on, I probably wouldn't have had as much stress as a business owner growing.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I just wanted everything to be perfect. I didn't want to lose a client. I didn't want to fail. It was like, it has to be done right. And so in the earlier days, I was setting up all of our clients to be ready for payroll, right? And so I would build them, I'd implement them, I'd reconcile everything, I'd get it all set up and train them on how to use our system and do all that. And I spent so much time on making sure it's absolutely perfect, like every nook and cranny, which sounds like a good thing, but I was also spending a lot of hours away from my family and late nights, work until midnight or whatever after the kids go to bed and just burning myself out. When did the client need that eventually? Yeah, but I wanted it done before. Like I didn't. And so I think that you just have to remember that perfection is the enemy of progress. When you have a new solution, a new product, or a new value proposition, or a new employee that you're bringing out, if they're not perfect, like that's okay. Like we're gonna grow from this. We're gonna learn from it. We're gonna continue to get better. But if we're not taking action on things, we're not going to progress. If you're waiting and waiting for it to be perfect. And so I think that was the biggest thing that I struggled with early on, is I wanted everything to be perfect. And then once we started hiring, that was even more challenging, because if they weren't doing it the way I was doing it, mentally I'm like, I got to slow down. Like I got to just learn from it. It's okay. At the end of the day, if it's done, the client's happy and it's done, it gets to the end goal the same, different ways, but it doesn't have to be my way. And so when you start your own business, you want to have your hands on everything. And that was probably the biggest challenge, was just realizing, like, we don't have to be perfect. We just got to care. We just got to try. We're all human, right? And just do our best. And it goes back to when you were a kid. Yeah. Your parents tell you, like, just do your best. And so I think you lose sight of that as you grow up. And my dad has this quote that I love, and it's, don't ever grow up, do grown up things. And so I thought that was, keep that childlike energy and keep that, just do your best and do everything you possibly can. You're good. You're starting your business because you're good at what you do. Yeah. It doesn't have to be perfect. And you're going to grow if you stress about it being perfect all the time, you're going to struggle.
Oh no, definitely. I agree with you 100%. My issues, and it's so funny that I'm hearing these stories, and you've been at it for, you said 5 years?
6 years.
6 years, yeah, 6 years. And everything you mentioned, it's stuff that I went through. I have a buddy of mine, he tells me, he says, do not change your goal, but always be flexible with your approach. Yeah. And I feel when we have expectations that it needs to be a certain way, A, B, C, D, so on and so forth. But then if it happens from A, C, B, and we get so stressed out, sometimes I would get like really bad anxiety, and I would get stressed out, lose sleep, and I'm like, ah. But now I'm learning to be flexible. And even today, I have my cousin's going to join the team. He's going to be editing, and I use Final Cut Pro. That's something that like, it's an editing software, I'm pretty sure, but like for the general audience. And he uses Adobe Premiere Pro, which is a whole different software. Yeah. And I told him, all right, I gave him the basics of what these reels, splicing, what I want from him. But I said, you're going to learn it from your system, because that's what he's used to. And I'm going to let him do it. I was like, but this is what I want, the end product.
It'll still be edited.
Exactly.
Right? It'll still look good.
Yeah. So I think that's something definitely really important. And to conclude this episode, man, can you share some words of wisdom or of hope for the viewers?
Yeah, I think you nailed it with set your vision, right? You got to define your purpose. And the only way to define your purpose is having an open mind, right? You can't be closed off and stuck in your ways. You've got to open your mind up to new ideas and new people. And then define your purpose, figure out what it is that you want out of life. I think we're all at the age now where we're starting to figure out what the rest of our life looks like. And the glory days of high school or early mid-20s or whatever is long gone, right? Like now we're not invincible. We need to start figuring out what we want that to look like. And so just be a knowledge seeker, continue to prepare for those opportunities that align with your purpose so you can take action on them and you have the confidence to take action. So the more you prepare, the more your understanding of where it is that you want to go, more confidence you have to say yes to that opportunity. Now, it's not being a yes man. It's being yes to the opportunities that align with, that'll get you further down along your path. And it's just remembering that your path is the success, right? Your mind only works the subconscious mind only works in the present tense. It doesn't know what your future is going to look like. It doesn't know you have memories and what happens in the past. But when you tell yourself, instead of saying, I will be happy when I achieve this goal, say, I am happy because I'm on the right path, right? And you just continue to tell those I am statements to yourself. That stuff works. And so it just building that positivity and that mindset to take action on those opportunities and then being able to pivot and learn, but don't run and hide. And I think you'll be just fine. There's no straight line. You've got to be able to pivot and navigate different ways and just keep moving forward.
Man, I appreciate it. I definitely feel inspired. I feel happy because I am going through this. I'm in the beginning stages. So like hearing people like you, that's definitely a motivation. And I feel happy that I am on the right path because I'm learning to be grateful and being, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm actually enjoying the journey.
Yeah.
Like I was so focused in the beginning of getting the end goals, hitting these target goals. Like, no, dude, like I'm like, this is part of it. This is part of the growing, the learning, and this is my baby. So if I want this to succeed, this is my second time starting a media company. Like the last time I did was like 4 years ago. Some stuff that went down, and it's a long story. We need a whole podcast for that, but I'm happy, man.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited. I'm glad that you came today, and I got to learn more about you, and I'm excited to connect even outside the studio. And to, if people wanted to learn more about your services and they wanted to connect with you, what is your call to action? How could people find you? And what is that?
Yeah, our website, journeypayroll.com. You can find out all about us there. But if you on Instagram, I share a lot of reels, and you can follow me there on social media. And I got my link tree with a lot of different other things that I've got going on. I run a weekly email newsletter sharing a mindset shift and opportunity stories, which is really cool. It inspires action and gives tangible, actionable items for people to build into their lives. I also have a podcast called the Success Flow Podcast. So you can find all of that kind of stuff on my website. It's opoflow.com, OPOFLOW. But on social media, it's at steven.oppo.flow. And you can follow me there and check everything out.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. If you guys want to follow, we're going to be on YouTube, Instagram, and thanks for watching, guys.